After being kicked out so my brother could have it all, I went MIA for 10 years. Now my parents beg for forgiveness after his life fell apart. I was just 20 years old when my parents kicked me out of my grandparents' house, the house that was supposed to be mine one day, but not anymore because my younger brother was the golden child. So everything had to be his. He got the house, the car, the money, everything, and I got nothing. That house was promised to me by my grandparents, so I never thought that I would have to leave. I still remember the day they told me I had to leave. It was like a bad dream. I couldn't believe my parents could be so heartless. My brother had met a girl, and they wanted to move in together. And where were they going to live? In my house, the house that I grew up in, that I loved so much. I begged and pleaded with them, but they wouldn't listen. They said I was being selfish, that I didn't understand how important it was for my brother to be happy. They told me I could go live with my aunt, who lived in another state. They didn't care what happened to me. I packed my bags that same day, with tears streaming down my face. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. My parents had always favored my brother, but I never thought they would go this far. I felt like I had been robbed of everything that was rightfully mine. And so I left and went to live with my aunt, who was kind enough to take me in, but I was never the same after that. I had lost my home, my family, and my sense of belonging. In the beginning, I tried to make the most of my new life, but it was never the same. I missed my grandparents' house so much. It was like a piece of me had been taken away. Now, 10 years later, they show up on my doorstep, begging me to speak to them. But can they make up for everything they've done to me? I don't know if I'm ready to forgive them just yet. Let me explain what happened. One day, when I got back home from work in the evening, they suddenly popped up. I stood there, staring at my parents in disbelief. After all these years, they dared to show up at my doorstep and beg for forgiveness. It had been 10 years since I had last spoken to them. 10 long years since they had kicked me out of the house and handed everything over to my younger brother, their golden child. It was like they expected me to welcome them back with open arms, like nothing had happened. But I couldn't forget the pain they had caused me. The pain of being kicked out of my grandparents' house, the only place I had ever called home. The pain of being cast aside like I didn't matter, just so my brother could move in with his girlfriend. After they kicked me out, I went completely MIA. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing them, hearing their voices, or facing their smug expressions. I moved in with my aunt, who had always been there for me. I remember crying myself to sleep every night, wondering what I had done wrong to deserve such treatment. But as time passed, I slowly began to move on. I completed my education, got a job, started building a life for myself, and made new friends who loved and supported me. I tried to push the memories of my family to the back of my mind, and slowly they had begun to fade. Now, here they were again. I couldn't help but wonder why they had come after all these years. They begged me to let them inside and talk to them, their faces filled with remorse and regret. I was curious, so I asked them why they had shown up after 10 long years of silence. My mother's eyes were filled with tears as she explained that they had made a terrible mistake. They had put all their hopes and dreams into my younger brother and had given him everything, even the house that belonged to our grandparents. But things hadn't gone as planned for my brother. His girlfriend had left him, and he had ended up squandering away all the money and resources our parents had given him. Now, with no place to go, he had come back to my parents, who had no choice but to take him in. My parents looked at me with pleading eyes, begging for my forgiveness. They said they had realized their mistake and wanted to make things right. But I couldn't forget the years of pain and hurt that they had caused me. I couldn't just forgive them so easily. I decided I didn't want to hear them out. They said that they had regretted their actions every day since, and I couldn't bear to live with the guilt anymore. But I didn't believe them. I didn't have the energy to deal with them. I was in a good place in my life. I had a family of my own, a home, and a career that I loved. I had worked hard to build a life for myself, and I couldn't let them destroy it again. I told them to leave, to go back to the son they had chosen over me. I didn't need them in my life anymore. They had made their bed, and now they had to lie in it. As they left, their tears turned to anger, but I didn't care. I had moved on from the hurt they had caused me, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into the past. Update 1. 1 week later. A few days ago, when I walked into the living room, I was taken aback by the sight before me. My husband and my parents were sitting together, deep in conversation. I was frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I was greeted by a smile from my husband, but my parents looked uneasy. I approached cautiously, taking a seat next to my husband. My parents immediately started apologizing again, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them so easily. Their words were heard, but I felt nothing in response. My husband, sensing my discomfort, put a comforting arm around my shoulders. He then turned to my parents and spoke sternly. He told them that they couldn't just show up out of nowhere and expect everything to be okay. He told them that they had hurt me deeply, and it was going to take more than a few apologies to make things right. My parents hung their heads in shame, knowing that he was right. They had expected to be able to make amends quickly, but they now realized that it would take time and effort to repair our relationship. They stayed for a while longer, tried to talk things through with me, but I remained distant and guarded. It would take a long time for me to trust them again, if I ever did. As they left, my husband pulled me into a tight embrace and whispered in my ear that he is here for me, no matter what, and that we'd get through this together. I felt a sense of comfort in his words and knew that I wasn't alone in this struggle. We would work through it, one step at a time. Update 2. A month had passed since my parents' unexpected visit, and things had settled down a bit. I had been trying my best to focus on my work and my relationship with my husband, but I couldn't help but feel conflicted about my parents. They continued to reach out to me, sending letters and leaving voicemails, asking to meet up and talk things through. I spoke to my aunt, who had taken me in all those years ago, about the situation. She listened patiently and offered her advice, but ultimately left the decision up to me. It was a difficult decision to make, as I still felt a deep sense of hurt and betrayal towards my parents. Part of me wanted to forgive them and move on, to try and rebuild our relationship, but another part of me was hesitant, unsure if I was ready to let them back into my life. I couldn't just forget everything that had happened and pretend that everything was okay. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet with them to see if we could find some common ground. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop in the city. As I walked in, I saw my parents sitting at a table, looking nervous and apprehensive. We sat down and began to talk. They told me how sorry they were, how they regretted everything that had happened. They promised that things would be different and that they would never hurt me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all just empty words. I told them how I had struggled over the first few years and how their actions had impacted my life. I talked about the pain and hurt that I had experienced and how difficult it was to forgive and forget. They listened intently, looking remorseful. As we finished our coffee and said our goodbyes, I still wasn't sure if I wanted them back in my life. It takes a lot of effort to rebuild a relationship from scratch, and I'm not sure if I'm willing to put in so much effort and time. I believe that it's important for Op to give her parents a chance. It's clear that they are remorseful for what they did, and they are making an effort to reconcile with her. While it may be difficult to forgive them for what they did, it's important to consider the value and potential for a meaningful relationship moving forward. She can take things slow, set boundaries, and see where the relationship goes. NTA. In my opinion, the parents' actions were unforgivable. They chose their golden child over their daughter and made her feel unwanted and unloved. While they are trying to make amends now, the damage has already been done. It's okay for Op to not want to let them back into her life, and she shouldn't feel guilty for setting boundaries to protect herself. Her well-being and mental health should come first. As an outsider looking in, it's clear that OP has every right to be angry and hurt by what her parents did. While it may not be easy, OP may find that she can build a new, healthier relationship with her parents if they are truly remorseful and willing to work on things. She should listen to her feelings and maybe consider the possibility of forgiveness and reconciliation, but take things at her own pace and not feel pressured into anything. NTA. OP should be wary of letting her parents back into her life. While they may be apologizing and trying to make amends now, it's important to consider whether they will continue to prioritize their golden child over her in the future. OP has already been hurt deeply by their actions, and understandably she may not want to take the risk of being hurt again. Ultimately, the decision is hers, and she should trust her instincts and do what she feels is best for her well-being. Next story. My mother is widowed and only has her kids, me and my 2 brothers. I recently had a difficult delivery that has left me bedridden, so my mom came to help me. She had told me that she feels lonely in the big house, and said she is grateful to stay with us and my husband. My husband has been amazing, and has been doing most of the childcare because I am still not in the best condition to take care of our 3-month-old baby. My mother has been with us for about 2 months and has been a tremendous help to us. But sometimes, she criticizes the decision I and my husband make, which leaves my husband upset sometimes, since he is trying his best. I and my husband had decided that we didn't want to let our child cry himself to sleep. We decided that we wanted to cradle him so he knew we would always be there for him. Yesterday, my mother disagreed with this method and told us that she allowed me and my brothers to cry themselves to sleep, so they have a more scheduled sleeping, and it makes it easier for them to sleep for longer hours. I thought what she said made sense and told my husband that maybe we should go with that method. My husband got furious and told me that he is done. He wants her out of his house. My mom told him she is not going to leave her daughter's house, and I told him he can't kick her out of our house. My mom ended up leaving to go to bed. My husband told me he had it with my mom and that he works a full-time job, which is home-based, and does most of the childcare and housework with no help from me. That he has had it with me being her sidekick and being criticized in his home. I told him she was giving us a valid reason, and she was helping us out, so he's not doing everything on his own. He said he would rather get a nanny to help out, that my mom is making him mentally unwell, and I am not there for the most part. I told him that she is my mom, and I am not kicking her out. And he said it's funny that I can make these decisions when I'm not contributing anything to this household, and I'm barely functioning as a mother. That really hurt me because I have confided in him about how I don't feel like I'm doing enough, and he has always reassured me. I feel like he's trying to guilt me now. Edit. My mom has communicated with me on how she feels really lonely back in her house and she really likes staying with us. AITA for not kicking out my mom? Update. I talked to my husband and he apologized for what he said, and I told him I will tell my mom to leave. I did tell my mom that she has to leave within 2 days, but my brothers have been berating me about kicking her out, so I'm kind of feeling bad, but I know it is the right decision for my family. I have had 2 infections and am allergic to most safe painkillers, so without the painkillers, I'm in constant pain and discomfort. But I think I should be okay within the month. We will get a nanny within the month and probably start looking tomorrow. I am definitely not using the CIO method now. YTA. If you're choosing your mother over your husband, he's your partner and the father of your children. Discuss the sleeping schedule with your husband after she's back at her own house and he's in a better headspace. YTA. Sounds like your husband is working really hard, and even though you might have a good reason to not be able to do as much around the house, there's not a good reason to undermine your spouse and the parenting techniques you two agreed on in favor of your mom's ideas. Your spouse is your partner in this, not your mother. 2 months is also a really long time to have someone helping out with the kid. I love my parents-in-law, but there's no way in hell I'd have wanted to live with them giving me advice in my own house for that long. YTA. If you care more about your mom's feelings than your husband's, then you should go live with her so that her house isn't lonely. Sounds like your husband is already doing all of the housework and childcare, so he'll be fine, and this way, he doesn't also have to cater to 2 grown adults. Next story. I am 35, male, sister is 30, my kids are 7 and 9, and hers are 6 and 12. This year we hosted Christmas dinner. I adore my sister, and I adore my niece and nephew. They're good kids. We spend a lot of time together, and our kids love playing together. However, her kids have this habit of digging into the food that's being served without it being in their plate. For example, once when we visited, my sister made mashed potatoes, and both kids dipped their fingers in the pot and licked them, dipped again, etc. My kids never did this in their life. I don't have a problem with that. Her house, her rules. My wife and kids hate it though. So we were settling down at dinner and almost all the guests had arrived. We had some light drinks and my wife and I brought out the first course, which consisted of multiple things like cheese, grapes, ham, steamed veggies, meatballs, etc., on big platters, so our guests can serve themselves with whatever they liked. As per usual, kids start going around the table to pick stuff from the platters. We laughed and cheered as they played around until I noticed that my niece and nephew were grabbing something, taking a bite, and putting it back. My wife noticed it, so she went discreetly around to get the stuff they bit out of. I pulled my sister aside and told her to please tell her kids to stop doing that. In came the next meal, which was a light soup with sour cream. The instant my wife put the serving bowl down, my niece and nephew grabbed the ladle and licked it. We kind of laughed nervously. My wife replaced the bowl in soup. Again, I told my sister to speak to her kids about it before the main course was served. My wife and I decided to just plate everything ourselves for each guest, which was a lot of work but worth it. Again, niece and nephew immediately got up and started going around, dipping their fingers in random plates. At this point, my wife got a bit angry and told them aloud to wait patiently for their plates. Sister got irked. Guests started to get uncomfortable. Sis said they're just kids. After an hour or so, we got out some chocolate cake. My niece and nephew literally put their hands in it before my wife got a chance to cut it. I saw her eyes started to get watery out of frustration and blew up. Yelled at my sister for not disciplining her kids and making everyone uncomfortable. My sister and brother-in-law got up and left. Several guests said they found this gross, but mom and dad say that I could have spoken to my sister in private. Now I feel like an NTA, did your sister raise those kids in a barn? What the hell is wrong with her? You told her several times in private, and she can't pull the kids aside and tell them to knock it off. Jesus, that's disgusting. 100% NTA. Your sister, who sounds like she has zero spine, had every opportunity to step in and prevent it from happening. I thought you were going to say they just sampled frosting like kids sometimes do, which is still gross, but every dish that came out. And then she storms off instead of telling those little piglets to stop? Frick that. NTA. You went to their mom privately multiple times and nothing was done. It was upsetting your guests and your wife, and the kids are definitely old enough to restrain themselves around company, especially if they are at someone else's house. NTA. You know, over the past 2 years, I'm always amazed at how the need to wash your hands keeps popping up everywhere, as I thought everyone did this. Evidently, I was wrong, but surely your sister and parents have realized this. It is gross. I wouldn't eat anything around them. Had they used the toilet? Grandparents should be ashamed also, as this is basic hygiene, and you shouldn't have to need to say anything to your sister.